Before the bombs, before the borders, and before the bloodshed, came the cheers. The people raised their hands, they shouted in unison, they followed not out of fear, but faith. Fascism wasn't just imposed from above, it rose from below, from classrooms, pulpits, theaters, dinner tables. Today we ask the most uncomfortable question of all. What if the real weapon wasn't the leader, but the crowd? If you want more bold, unflinching stories of war, power, and the people caught in between, subscribe to Shadow Force and help us shine a light on the darkest corners of history. No dictator rises without fertile ground. In the years after World War I, Europe bled silently. Economies collapsed, identities shattered. People didn't just want answers, they craved clarity, order, meaning. The Weimar Republic in Germany gave them confusion. Liberal Italy gave them dysfunction. And so, when fascist leaders appeared, they didn't seize power, they were invited. In Germany, it was townspeople who passed around Hitler's speeches. In Italy, veterans rallied around Mussolini long before he marched on Rome. The people weren't coerced, they were starving for a narrative that made them feel strong again. Fascism didn't come wrapped in barbed wire, it came cloaked in beauty. Painters illustrated national rebirth, sculptors glorified the human form. Filmmakers like Leni Riefenstahl in Nazi Germany made propaganda so elegant it felt like worship. Writers revised the past into legend. Fascism knew that fear works fast, but beauty lasts longer. In Italy, poets transformed Mussolini into a living myth. In Spain, even Catholic artists justified Franco's brutal crusade as divine purification. Art wasn't a casualty of fascism, it was a carrier. The most dangerous part of fascism is that it sounds familiar. When fascist regimes rose, they didn't just replace institutions, they co-opted them. Teachers stopped teaching history, they began teaching destiny. Priests replaced sermons with politics. The community's most trusted figures weren't silenced, they were converted. And once the trusted voices echoed the new truth, dissent died quietly. Children learned who the enemies were, parents grew quiet, silence became survival. The scariest stories of fascism aren't in battlefields, they're on quiet streets. When society collapses into fear and nationalism, enemies are invented. A Jewish shopkeeper becomes a threat. An anti-war journalist becomes a traitor. A gay teacher becomes a corrupter. It didn't take soldiers to purge the undesirables. It took neighbors. In Nazi Germany, over half of Gestapo arrests came from citizen informants. In fascist Italy, children denounced their own parents. The weaponization of the crowd is what made fascism sustainable. Mass violence wasn't imposed, it was volunteered. Fascism preached unity, but it thrived on division. Us versus them. Purity versus decay. Strength versus weakness. This mythology required enemies to survive. Once the public bought into it, war was inevitable. People believed their sacrifices were noble, that their dead were martyrs, that their suffering meant something. Fascist leaders didn't have to drag the crowd into war. The crowd was already marching. In Germany, Hitler promised eternal peace once the rot was cleansed. In reality, he needed war to justify his ideology. In Italy, Mussolini said war was the hygiene of the world. The masses cheered. It's easy to believe fascism belongs to the past. But look closer. Today, influencers echo nationalist talking points. Teachers are pressured to omit uncomfortable truths. Protesters are labeled traitors. People cheer for strongmen who say what others won't. The crowd doesn't chant in stadiums anymore. It chants online. Fascism is no longer about boots and flags, it's about algorithms and fear. It grows slowly, through language, culture, memes. And just like before, it tells people what they want to hear. You are the victim. They are the threat. Only we can save you. Fascism was never just about one man, one flag, or one ideology. It was about people. People who cheered. People who stayed silent. People who thought they were doing the right thing. In the end, the biggest warning from history isn't about dictators. It's about crowds. Subscribe to Shadow Force if you believe the past should never be repeated blindly. Like, share, and help us spread truth before the next cheer becomes a war cry.